In my mind, there's one choice for roofing around here, and I'd go with your best choice. Whether it's time to replace your roof or repair it, Best Choice Roofing provides top-notch roofing services tailored to meet the unique needs of Detroit homes and businesses. They serve the region and inside the city of Detroit, too. You can find out more at bestchoiceroofing.com/Detroit. That's bestchoiceroofing.com/Detroit, or call 313-474-7031. That's 313-474-7031. Hello, friends, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It is a sunny Friday, August 22nd, 2025. I am Jer Stays, coming to you from our studio at Techtown, and joining me from west of Woodward by the banks of the Rouge, none other than the excellent man about town, Devon O'Reilly. How are you?
I'm good, Jer. It's a beautiful day on the banks of the Rouge. I'm glad you got to see it the other week. So now you kind of get a feel for what my situation is. So yes, it's a beautiful day here. Saw a couple deer already. So, things are good.
What is your favorite animal that you see out there?
Oh, it's a great question. The turkeys are pretty feisty. I see them standing on like standing on top of logs and kind of trotting around in the woods, and they'll pop out and maybe hang out on the lawn there. So the turkeys are pretty cool. The once in a while coyote is awesome. Is pretty cool to see because they're pretty elusive. But I have seen a few coyotes.
Very nice. Yeah, occasionally I will see turkeys and coyotes in the city of Detroit. So
yeah, I feel like that's a. The coyotes are probably after the turkeys, frankly.
Yeah, that's true. It's the circle of life or whatever it is in the movies. We've got a full show for people with some listener feedback, some opinions and thoughts on what's happening. Because, we wanted to catch up to some of these different topics that are important around town. And I think what we'll do first is dive into a listener question. And this listener question is from Nina and wants to know what our thoughts are around the Mike Duggan, who's running for governor, his donor base, his campaign, things like that. Wanted to know what our thoughts were with him drawing from both Democrats and Republicans. And since this question was asked, there was actually a number of officials that endorsed Duggan, to which the Democratic Party retaliated and actually took away access to the Democratic Party voter lists. So let's talk about it, Devon O'Reilly.
Yeah, well, we'll start with Duggan, and I feel like it's kind of like initially only one side of the story was being told. Now what do we know? Mike Duggan is running as an independent. That's the whole point. The whole point is he's running as an independent, not a Democrat, not a Republican. So the first kind of campaign finance reports come out, and lo and behold, he's raising a ton of cash. First of all, a lot of it is coming from Republicans and a lot of it is coming from Democrats. Now, the first wave of stories, and they are from, if we're just being fair, Metro Times, that's certainly liberal leaning,
or Gander.
Yeah, exactly. They focused on the headlines were Duggan's campaign drawing big money from Trump supporters, wealthy GOP donors, and it kind of tried to frame it as that's who's funding his campaign. And whether you like that or not, I'm sorry to tell you, that's literally just half the story. And, when you dig into it, yes, the story named several different big donors. I mean, I don't want to get too personal, but I know some of these people, they are, what would you call Jared, GOP light? They're kind of they're pro-business Republicans. They probably donated to the Bush campaign. So it's not like they're some, big time MAGA booster type of people. They're just, I guess, what would you call like average Republican donors, pro-business donors. So that's completely unsurprising that Duggan would get that support. But then, I think the campaign pushed back a little bit, and maybe some others did, and also put out all the donors on the Democratic side that donated, because there were a ton with deep pockets. And so it kind of I think it kind of served to show that, yes, he's raising a ton of money, and it's coming from both sides of the aisle. So it's kind of like a non-story to me, but I think that people did try and make it a story.
I think it's important for people because there are a number of folks who believe that if you take any money from any Republican, you're out. And the thing is that a lot of the public doesn't think that way. To me,
and that's not the point.
Well, yeah,
of running as an independent.
Right. When you run as an independent, you can't call yourself an independent unless you occasionally give Republicans praise or give Democrat. You have to do that if you want to cast yourself as an independent. I think where I had a blind spot in this story, to me, of course, Roger Penske gave him money, right? To me, of course, because like they've worked together covering Detroit for so long. This all tracks to me. This always tracks and is always who he was. So like much like when like James Craig, former Detroit police chief, came out as a Republican and people were completely like, oh my God, how could he? Of course he's a Republican. If you actually listened to any speech James Craig gave over the years he was a DPD chief, you look at that and go, yeah, of course. Like, he sounds like a Republican. But because we get this like idea of party fealty, and that gets into our next story, we tend to think of this as like left, right, and the thing is that's difficult about this for me is that the energy of what the public is versus what the very online people are and what a lot of pundits are is very different. I don't think people have internalized people hate these parties. They hate the Republican Party. They hate the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party should be polling way better than it is, considering how unpopular, in fact, Donald Trump really is with the nation. But it is not, because nobody is meeting the moment. And at some point, you have to have the public behind you. And I'm sorry, but like too many people are stuck in their bubbles around who they talk to.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just to piggyback on what you're saying, I'm not going to really be interested in engaging with somebody who is of the mind that you can't even you can't even work with someone who may be, a Republican or a Democrat, depending on what side of the aisle you fall on. Like, that's just ridiculous. And in my world, professionally, personally, it just doesn't work like that. Get out of your bubble is all you say to that. But then the other piece of that, like you mentioned, is the Michigan Democratic Party's response to any Democratic candidates who had supported Duggan is to essentially, pull the information they're able to access, this voter list, this voter rolls that they really use and rely on a lot of times. And, when you get like text alerts, when you get emails, and not everyone likes them, but they do help campaigns or else people wouldn't do them. They took those away. They restricted or took away access to those for Democratic candidates, actual 100% actual Democratic candidates, not independents, took that away from Democratic candidates just because, they went to a Duggan event or they supported Duggan. That's just so petty from the Michigan Democratic Party at a time when they are so unpopular. And it's like they should get out of their bubble and realize nobody likes you anyway. You're not helping yourself by creating a smaller tent. If Democrats don't become a big tent or the big tent party, they are doomed to die on the vine. And this is just a poor judgment, misreading the room. And we'll see how it goes. I'm not sure how this is going to shake out. I certainly don't think this is kind of the final chapter in this saga, but it's definitely just an unforced error by Michigan Democratic Party.
Yeah, I look at it a couple ways. I think one, it hurts the mainstream Democratic Party. It also provides another lane for progressives who, the DSA folks who are more organized with a lot of this stuff, who, yes, if you want to run as a DSA candidate, as we talked about on this show before with Sam Robinson, you got to say that you're DSA, but they're very well organized around that. And they've been making moves in smaller offices. It also leaves open the opportunity. And listen, I don't put this past Mike Duggan or anyone connected to him because I've been around long enough to remember the McNamara administration. Go look it up. He ran Wayne County for a long time. Mike Duggan comes from a world of organized, and some would call it machine politics. If you start pulling away those resources, the people connected to Mike Duggan have enough money to put him back. And what happens then? Mm-hmm. Are we actually talking about a third party at this point? Are we actually talking about those sorts of things that start to move the needle? And I think that this is I'm not surprised by this move by the Democratic Party. For me, I'm not surprised they did it. But I think strategically, this is going to hurt in the long run in ways that I don't think they're playing out.
What was the benefit, though, from the Michigan Democratic Party's perspective? What do they think the benefit was, other than just punishment?
Okay, so then what are you going to do next? Are you going to go ahead and try to primary these people? Are you going to try to primary your elected officials? Is that where we're going?
Democratic. That's what's so crazy. Like, we're talking about Democratic elected officials, not independents, not people who are leaving the party. People like, who are actual Democrats. They're just shooting themselves in the foot with this. And yeah, it's only going to shrink their tent. It's only going to turn off those who have been kind of spurred by the Michigan Democratic Party. And hey, this could be one of those scenarios where the Michigan Democratic Party has to go the way of the Michigan GOP, which is essentially shriveled up and died due to lack of funding. Because people don't want to give to the MDP anymore. They want to give to a specific candidate. And so people aren't going to want to give to the state's Democratic Party, because what the heck has the state's Democratic Party done for them? So I don't know. I don't like the move. So we'll see. Like I said, there's definitely more to come in this saga.
For sure. And I've heard from people that they are not going to be donating to the party now because of this. And it'll be interesting to see, because the party's main point is to raise money and provide organization. If it's not going to do that, what's the point? And the Republican Party now is mostly a ballot access shell for MAGA, right? People don't think of themselves as Republicans. They think of themselves as aligned with Donald Trump or MAGA or something like that. Mm-hmm. We've seen the surveys on that. So I think that's interesting. And that ties into our next story and dovetails into more frustration with the state of Michigan, because there is a school's budget deadlock in Lansing. It's complicated. It has to do with funding the roads, funding the schools. But the bottom line is that Michigan is way behind in getting a budget passed. The clock is ticking. There is deadlock between Democrats and Republicans, a lot of finger pointing. You could say one side or the other is more at fault than the others. But when it comes to the general public, they are frustrated. And they're very frustrated because schools are something like, yes, roads are very important. But a recent poll that came out talked about how by a 74% margin, by a margin of 74 to 13, voters chose public school funding over road funding as their personal top priority. The clock is ticking. We are running into a situation where schools are having trouble figuring out their budgets. I saw the writing on the wall for this problem all the way back at the Mackinac Policy Conference, because it seems like that these political leaders can't seem to get it together. A constitutional amendment failed with the idea that actually Mike Duggan proposed, Mike Duggan was talking about, where one would pull the funding to legislators. Like, if you don't pass a budget, the legislators don't get paid. I actually think that's a wonderful idea. But
yes, agreed.
And the thing is that there is no real world incentive, because when it comes to local politics, people aren't banging on doors being like, get the kids funded. But it's gonna come to home to roost real fast. We are out of time, and schools need their money.
Yeah, we can't. You're right. I think that's the problem. This is what is broken about politics, is that you hit it right on the head, Jer. There's no incentive to get anything done. And so people just dig into their corners and kind of say, well, look, it's the other side that's gridlocking things, the other side holding up things. And, there's, like you said, there's no incentive to get done. The idea of not paying the legislators until they actually pass a budget is a fantastic idea, because for God's sakes, they need some incentive to work together to get something done. And, school budgets are not my forte, so I can't get into the nitty gritty of this. I don't know what the hang up is. I imagine both sides have different interests, and maybe that's the problem, is they have such vastly different ideas of what needs to be done. On the Republican side, they favor a more kind of capitalistic charter school focused approach, and the Democratic side, clearly favors a more kind of holistic funding public schools at the state level, at the city level approach. And I don't know. They got to just figure out how to meet in the middle somewhere.
One thing that ties into this wider conversation from this poll that came out, that's a Glenn Gariff poll, 2/3 of Michiganders blame the governor, the House, and the legislature equally. Three of those things are controlled by Democrats. But either way, this ties into that wider dissatisfaction that the public has, because there's been proof, whether it was this or even the last House term, where a bunch of priorities that Democrats wanted to get done died on the vine because of disorganization to an extent. They should have been passed way before the lame duck. That was a complete tactical error on Democrats' part. That's that frustration of do your jobs, man. I don't care what party you're in.
Yeah, I think that people that's what people feel. It's just do your jobs. It doesn't matter, and we're going to blame all of you. And maybe that's the right approach. Maybe it's the wrong approach. But it's the case where Governor Whitmer, for her part, it's almost like I've sat on the sidelines for this too. Again, like I'm saying, I'm not someone who knows so much about this that I can speak super intelligently. But from my perspective, Yeah, I don't see Governor Whitmer out there doing anything, making a case for something, putting on grabbing the megaphone and saying what she advocates for. I don't personally know exactly what she's advocating for. So yeah, it's kind of everyone's just like the whole lot of you are not getting it done, so we blame all of you.
I wonder if this discussion would be more to the forefront, if not in the age of Trump, where it feels like there's an overtone of like, well, they're not getting something done, but there's that guy in the presidency. So like, because so much of the conversation now is so focused nationally that I think this is where we're starting to see local policy rot. Let's take our energy back downtown. The City Club Apartments on the old Statler site, Crane's Detroit Business reports that it is in receivership. This was a building that I have a lot of memories of because when we first started, like early on in the podcast, we did an episode all about their so-called sexy bathrooms, and people downloaded the crap out of it. And this project is a 288-unit building. They have basically defaulted on a loan. It's in court-appointed receivership. The folks, it's City Club Apartments. It's Jonathan Holtzman, a developer who's done a lot of stuff around the city. Holtzman, for his part, says that the failure is due to economic consequences of COVID-19 and saying that remote work, high interest rates, and lack of job creation in downtown Detroit says hurt his investment. I don't know about that. I'm very like there is like it's interesting because this is a curious market problem, but I also think this could have been managed better.
Yeah, I mean, okay, it's like it's not that. It's not like Holtzman is completely out of line. But the question is like maybe if you ask me, that's like 10% of it, maybe 20% of it. But like 80-90% of it is not those things that he's mentioning, because other entities, other developments are able to either survive, do well, whatnot. I mean, this was kind of to me, this was a doomed development from the beginning. And I know this can go all the way back to our listeners who, know Detroit's history, the Statler Hotel, which many feel should have never been torn down. If they could have just waited a few more years, we could have, caught that wind of development fever that was going on in Detroit, and maybe it would have stayed and been developed. And so you had this empty, grassy field for years. And, the City Club Apartments came in, and frankly, Jer, this is what I find interesting about the situation is most people, even developers, say that it was built cheaply. Like they built it on the cheap. It's not like this was some high end. They built this, spare no expense. We're going to go, 10, 12 stories into the sky. I've heard someone call it, I'll say another developer in Detroit. I heard someone call it a matchstick building. Because, the word was, it wasn't built that expensively. So this wasn't even that expensive, all things considered, for what it is. And so to fall into receivership, I just feel like, I don't know. There are still a lot of people living downtown. Demand is still relatively high. I don't know what the rents were like at City Club. I don't think you were getting a ton of amenities outside of sexy bathrooms and a nice little courtyard there. But I don't buy those arguments. I think there was definitely something else there. Because it's a viable property. I mean, there's no reason why you can't bring people there, but maybe the price point's the issue. Maybe it actually was expensive, even though it didn't seem like it was expensive to build. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, but it's not like this is going anywhere. It's going to remain apartments.
Well, then finally, I want to mention something that I intend on stopping by and taking some pictures for our newsletter, which you can sign up for at dailydetroit.com. Aloe Yoga is opening up in Hudson's Detroit, the first retail spot in that mega development right there on Woodward in the heart of the city. This is a big deal, to see these kind of things happening. Now, I do feel like we're starting to get a abundance of yoga gear in. I mean, you got Lululemon, you tell me, you bought the stuff down Lululemon down the street. And then Aloe. I mean, I feel like it's Namaste on Woodward nowadays.
Well, what's funny is though, like, athleisure is certainly kind of the trend du jour for a while now. Partly, I think the COVID absolutely just launched athleisure brand into the stratosphere because it's like the perfect work from home stuff. It's the perfect kind of in the middle of work and play or whatever. So the athleisure brand market has been just going crazy. And yeah, we had a Lululemon downtown. I shop there. And I like, they have, it's like, because people said yoga pants or yoga store or whatever, the yoga clothing. But I think, that's discounting how, I would say, how broad of a lineup someone like Lululemon has, where they actually have slacks and they have, chinos, and they have, 5-pocket pants, they have dress shirts, they have a blazer. Like, I wear Lululemon mostly for work. I don't even do yoga. I don't know if that's ALO or Aloe. Is it? I don't even know. It's new to the scene, but I have been seeing it a lot, and like celebrities seem to be wearing it a lot. They're doing a good job recently of like getting their brand out there. When I was watching, what was it? Whatever tennis, big tennis tournament was on. A lot of the players I saw had Aloe gear on and stuff. So they're doing a good job of getting their brand out into like celebrities. And yeah, I mean, why not come for some of that market share of Lululemon? Because that's what people like to wear when they're working at home in their $2,500 a month apartments in downtown Detroit, right?
All right. Well, all right. So I'm going to put a question out there. Other than a grocery store, because if I don't put that qualifier there, other than like a name brand grocery store, which it seems like everybody wants, what would you want to see in that retail spot? What do you think is missing? And let's be realistic here, because this is Hudson's Detroit. Like, this is going to be a high-end thing, whatever it is. So I'm interested to see what you would see, what you'd want to see to help draw people down there. Because there really is getting to be, we're on Apple Store watch. A lot of people, I get messages all the time. When is the Apple Store opening? I get we're on this like precipice of a true high street for downtown Detroit, a luxury shopping experience. So destination shopping experience. So it's something that's going to be a big people will be watching. So I want that feedback at dailydetroit@gmail.com.
I'm going to give you mine too, real quick, Jer. I've got a small scale, a Lego store. I think Lego stores are just amazing. Everyone loves a Lego store, and you can do a lot with it. So I would like to see a Lego store. And then finally, thinking big, have you ever been to an Eataly?
Yes, I have.
Those things are awesome. Those are awesome. They're like, they're a restaurant. They're like a rooftop bar. They're a little bit of grocery, so cheating a little bit, but grocery isn't the main thing. They do have food and grocery and on home goods and all that. But Eataly would be awesome at Hudson's.
Well, I would love to hear what people have to say. dailydetroit@gmail.com or 313-789-3211. Also, thank you to our members on Patreon, patreon.com/dailydetroit. Local media requires local support to survive, and your help really does matter. Devon O'Reilly, so good to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, Jer. Hope everyone enjoys what should be a beautiful weekend here.
Yeah, and before I go, I got to mention the Palmer Park bandshell, the one that was at the Michigan State Fairgrounds. It is opening this weekend. I want to be out there 12 to 4. There's going to be stuff. Bring a picnic blanket. I mentioned this on WJR this morning. Go out there because it's so cool to see this piece of history back to life.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. And I want to check it out soon.
All right. Well, with that, I'm Jer Stays.
I'm Devon O'Reilly.
Thank you so much for listening. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll talk on Monday.